Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter from Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast, part of the Fans First Sports Network. And I want to talk to you today about Robert Spillane. I was recently traveling and I was stopped in an airport by someone that recognized me, and we were just chatting very briefly. And they were asking me about players that I felt were not getting enough attention. I thought that was a fascinating question. And I told him one player that I don't think enough fans of the Raider Nation are talking about is Robert Spillane, the middle linebacker. I want to tell you about Spillane. I want to give you a little bit more detail on him because I think this is a young man that's going to have a huge impact on the Raiders in 2023. This is a kid out of Oak Park, Illinois. He is a bruiser. He is just an old school football player. This is a kid that you would expect to play with a leather helmet back in the day. He is a hard worker. I don't know anything about his family, but I'll tell you, I know nothing about his family, but know everything about his family, and I want to explain what I mean. Kid has a work ethic. He's just a hard worker, and he loves football. And so he goes to the Steelers. Now, I can tell you the Steelers absolutely wanted to keep him. I'm not guessing on that. I know that factually. They wanted him, they coveted him. Where they were financially at the time when they made their offer, they gave him the best offer that they could. The Raiders just wanted him more. Dave Ziegler identified that's the kind of player I want. He's got a work ethic, a guy who's going to work hard. He's a guy that's going to be there every day. He's not going to be a problem. He's a blue collar lunch pail, show up and just pound your face in, old school linebacker. And I know this, there was great angst inside the Steelers when they lost him. Now, the way things worked out, they lost some other guys. So they actually went and paid another guy more money. And some people have used that, oh, they really didn't want him. Absolutely not true. But the way the salary cap worked out, they ended up having to go get somebody. And I can tell you for the money that they paid the guy they got, they would have rather have kept Spillane. They just didn't have the dollars available at the time. And so this is a guy, I believe it was the last 6 or 8 games of the season. I don't remember, but it was the last 6 or 8 of 2022. He played every rep on defense and every rep on every special teams. Now, I want you to think about that. He's a starting Mike linebacker, middle linebacker for the Steelers, for the Steelmen. And he's playing every rep on defense, every rep on special teams. And it's interesting because just a couple of days ago, I was talking to a current Raider, and I've always said to you, you can't judge rookies when the pads are off. You just can't. But veterans, you can because you know what you're getting. And I said to this player, I said, I was recently asked, maybe some guys that aren't getting enough press who are going to be, good players, significant players in 2023. And before I could say to him, I said Robert Spillane. He said, "Oh, I hope you talked about Robert Spillane." I said, "Yeah, I did." And I asked this player, I said, "Give me your observation. What do you think about Spillane? What stands out to you about Spillane?" And he told me several things, and I want to just present those to you because I think it gives you good insight. As a journalist, I can give you my opinion. And I would hope by the fact of the tens of thousands of you that watch this, that carries some weight. And I respect you for that. And I'm grateful. But let's be totally honest. My opinion or a current player who's practiced with him, been in the locker room with him, I mean, there's no comparison. Their opinion is far more valuable than mine. And I'm okay with that. It doesn't hurt my ego. It's the reality. And this player gave me 4 reasons why he loves Spillane. And I'm going to share these with you. I'm going to grab my piece of paper right here because I'm getting old. I thought I had it right here. 4 things he told me why he loves Spillane. Number 1, he said, kid's work ethic is amazing. He goes, he's already in our top 10 players for work ethic, and the guy's only been here in the offseason. Now, this is where I go back to saying I don't know his family, but I know his family. This is a guy, the money didn't change him. And he's pounding it. He's working hard. He's showing up. He's doing all that he does. And he won a ton of respect in that locker room because he shows up and all he does is work. He's a hard worker and they love him for it. And that's a big deal. You want, I mean, your best player on defense is Max Crosby, and it's not close. He's your best player. He's your best player in the team, and he's your best defensive player. Offense, Devontae Adams is your best player on the offense. I think he's your second best player on the team. I think he's a great player. But when you got Robert Spillane in the top 10 of workers on a team of really hard workers, that tells you something. The kid is there. Number two, players talked about, I'll read this as a direct quote. He said, we were 2 days into off-season practices, and he's helping guys get in the right spot. The guy just got here. That's the way he thinks. He's just a thinker. He understands the scheme already, and I know he's learning it, but he was helping other guys get into the right places. That's what you have to be at that spot. That should tell you something about Robert Spillane. That should say, again, don't know his family, but you know his family. He shows up. He's studying the playbook. He's learning the scheme. He's putting guys in the right place. He's making guys better already. If you're a Raider, that is a really big deal. Now, I'm going to say something because I'm not going to try to rewrite history. It's not what I do. I love Denzel Perryman. I loved him as a person, first of all, just salt of the earth. There's an old saying, salt of the earth people. Denzel Perryman was that guy. And he was a game changer when he was in there. The problem with Denzel Perryman, he's just injured too much. And great guy, great person. When he played, he was a game changer, but he didn't play enough. And so I love the guy, but they had to move on for that reason. The best ability is availability. But you bring in a Robert Spillane, and listen, Denzel wasn't afraid to move guys around. But you didn't see from Denzel what you saw throughout all of camp from Robert Spillane, helping guys, working with guys. I was even told of a situation where he's helping a guy who's not a linebacker, telling him how to move. I don't, let me make sure I think this through. I can tell you this story. Yeah, I can tell you this one. And if you're wondering why I couldn't, it's very important. You know, the Raiders give the media access to practice, and our job is to report, but we can't share schematics or things that would hurt the Raiders. And I have no problem with that. I don't think that's unfair by the NFL or the Raiders at all. So when I said I had to think about it, it's just I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to be revealing something, and this won't. But I was told of a play where Robert Spillane was helping a young player with their depth, a defensive back, just helping them with their depth off the line of scrimmage, just giving them before the snap. That tells you a lot. So the first thing is work ethic, but the second thing was his understanding of the scheme early, and I thought that was big. Now, the third thing the person talked to me about, and it kind of goes along with number two, but it is different, and this was Robert's communication skills. A lot of people don't understand because when you go to a game, it's so loud, or when you watch it on TV, you maybe don't get to hear it all. I mean, you hear the quarterback, Omaha, whatever, but you don't necessarily get to hear. I can tell you there is so much talking going on in a football field. Some of it's trash talk, but a lot of it is communication. When you hear coaches talk about communication, you know, what makes a player great, and they'll say he's a great communicator. It's because they're constantly barking out. I'll give you an example. I told you about Spillane talking to the one player about their depth, but there were things where going up against the Raiders offense, he was calling out plays that he hadn't studied the offensive playbook, but he had seen the plays before, and he's calling out, telling backs, other linebackers, defensive linemen, tapping them on the rear, this is what's coming. I think the Raiders loved his toughness. They loved it. And that's why they wanted him, because he's constantly available and he's really tough. But I can tell you internally, there were some very happy people because they did not understand how good of a communicator Robert Spillane is. So that's another thing about him that I think is going to set him up to have a monster 2023 year. And then the fourth thing, and I thought this one really stood out to me a lot. And this is what the person said. I'm just going to read you their quote. Again, this is a current player. I'm just going to read you their quote as I wrote it down, and then I'm going to get into more details about it. I think what was really cool is Dave and Josh made it clear to him he needed to come in and be a leader. We need free agents when they come here to be leaders. That's super important. And one of the things that I saw quick with him was his building relationship with guys all over the locker room. He wasn't doing it as a new guy trying to get a friend. I think he was doing it as a leader, understanding I can't lead guys I don't know. I thought that was really impressive. Now, again, that comes from a current Raider player and a guy who's been on the team who, more than just this year, giving you some insight on Robert Spillane, just the way he works, the way he moves. I talked with a lot of players. I talked to Divine Diablo about him and the fact that, there's no pads, but how are they building a relationship? Divine really bragged about him. You can go back and find that video. I've already posted it. But I think those are some things that make Robert Spillane an X factor for the 2023 Raiders. When you're a guy that's constantly available, you're tough, you're a tremendous communicator, you're a leader, you're which is huge. I think that you're a guy that understands the scheme and you've got the work ethic. That is everything to me that sounds like an old school Raider. Now, in the interest of fair disclosure, I have always respected the Raiders, always respected them, because I'm old and I'm in my 50s. So when I was growing up, Monday Night Football was basically the Raider channel because they were so entertaining. People either loved or hated them. And that's the Raider toughness. That's what embodied to me watching a Raider and how they operate. So I think Robert Spillane brings to the Raider team. I think this is a guy that you got to really watch for. I think he has his limitations. He's not a guy that is going to kill it in pass coverage. He can do it. I think he can be effective at it, but I don't think he's the best pass coverage linebacker in the NFL, nor am I trying to imply that. But his instinct and his skills allow him to see. Now, this player only mentioned those four things to me. I want to mention a fifth thing that other people have mentioned to me is his vision, his ability to see all of the field. I don't have to be the fastest guy if I know where you're going. And if I see the play and watch it and I watch enough film to know how you run your routes, bam, I can read this is a pass coming to you and get there quicker. Spillane does that. He gets the most blood out of the turnip that a player can get. There's going to be bigger, faster, stronger guys than Robert Spillane. But what he does so well is with that vision is he watches a ton of film and he does the little things that can make yourself better. Technique. He's a technician. He's technically very, very sound. Whether he's lifting weights, watching film, doing stuff in the classroom, or playing, he's very technically sound. So I think and to answer this person's question in the airport, and I told them, that I would, and I gave him Robert Spillane, but told him I would do this and give more information. I think you got a guy right there that's not getting enough press that should. I understand that when you're a fan base that you haven't won in a long time, and the only two coaches that take you to a playoff were fired. I think the fan base is very, very frustrated, and I think reasonably so. I don't think there's a problem with that. I think you should be. Your franchise that you put your blood, money, sweat, and tears in has sold you just win, baby, and they haven't done that. And I think so that has hurt Spillane a little bit because a lot of people, I get a lot of comments. I don't want to hear, I don't want to read, don't want to see. Just go in and I'll come back. I understand that frustration, but I think this is a guy you need to put your hat on. This is a guy that's going to be an old school Raider type guy. And he's really stood out since he's been here, just as a leader, as a communicator, as a guy that's got a strong work ethic, and as a guy that understands the scheme. He's super smart. He's super football smart. And I think Robert Spillane's a guy that's going to get a lot more. But talking to just a fan wouldn't have necessarily had me do a podcast. But talking to a player and getting their insight, I think definitely made this germane to me. So Robert Spillane's a guy I want you to keep an eye on. I'm going to be watching him close early in camp. Hope to do a bunch of interviews with him. I just like his style. Go back, watch my Divine Diablo interview where I talked to him about Spillane, and then go back and watch my Spillane interview. I thought it was hilarious. He's very, very funny. And I think this is a guy, Raider Nation, that you're going to, at the end of the year, salute Dave Ziegler and say, great signing. Good job by you. I think he brings a presence that is not only very talented, but available. And that's one of the biggest things you can hope for in the National Football League. So, again, there is my player to watch, most underrated, one of my most underrated players, Robert Spillane, the Mike linebacker that came over in free agency from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm Hondo Carpenter from Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, part of the Fans First Sports Network. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you again next time right here on the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast.